Yo, yo, yo. This is Candy Bee Knittin. I'm Candy Bee. I be knittin'. And this is where I would show you my Pouf if I had one. It is actually, I finished it this morning. I wove in the ends, washed it, and it is on the blocking mat behind me. So next time we see each other, it'll be a deep dive into the Pouf by Beata Jezek. I'll give you all the details about that pattern and the yarn I use, etc., etc., etc. So instead, I am going to kind of show you some objects in various states of finished and unfinished, or nearly finished. This week I had a couple of days off and just kind of traveled with the kiddos, and so that's sock territory for me. And so this is the sock I've been working on for Mr. Rulu, just some Felici. And I think the last time I showed you I just finished like the cuff and maybe one stripe, and now I'm on to the heel flap. And this is Stephen West's basic sock pattern and fingering weight. The other thing I have in this bag is another nearly finished project, and it's finished all except for washing and blocking and weaving in the ends, but I'm not gonna wash and block these just yet. These are my Pioneer gloves by Boho Knits, aka Kelly McClure. And this is the Vesper's Progress Pride colorway. And this is a pattern I've made a couple of times before, both gifts for people, and this is my first time making it for myself. And my first time this was one of like my first patterns I made, like a legit, like I went on Ravelry and looked up a pattern for something and made something. And so this is kind of a sentimental pattern for me and a pattern I enjoy a lot. And so it was nice to revisit it for myself with some more advanced knitting techniques. And like I said, this is Vesper's yarn, Progress Pride. I did the large size gloves, and the reason I did the large size gloves is that she calls for a either 2mm or 2.5mm needle. Actually, let me double check that. I think it's size 2. Oh yeah, no, 2.5mm. 2.75mm. That's where I'm getting messed up. 2.75mm DP ends. I did them on size 0, which I believe are 2mm. And I do the large size because I like really stiff fabrics with my fingering weight, especially for gloves and socks and things. And so I went down quite a bit. She has 2 lengths in the pattern. She has a short version and then a long version. I did the extra long version, I guess I would call it, where I did an extra 10 rows down here. And this is a free pattern, by the way. And so I think she calls for 40 rows. I did maybe 50 rows, and also my gauge is a little bit tighter. And then, as I mentioned last week, I did the thumb in just a black generic wool nylon sock yarn, just so both thumbs would match, and I didn't want to waste a lot of length of this hand-dyed striped yarn doing just a thumb. And so I still need to weave in the ends. I'm going to weave in the ends, but I'm not going to wash and block them just yet because winter will be here before you know it. So I'm just going to wear them like this, and then at the end of the season wash them, because this is fairly new yarn and it's fairly clean already, and then I'll wash it at the end of the season. The other note, because my gauge is a little bit tighter, I did the number of rows she called for at the top, so I actually should have probably gone another 1/2 of an inch in length at the top too. But I also like the idea of getting 2 complete repeats, because I started with the blue, and then I don't know if this was Vesper's plan when she was dyeing the yarn, but somehow perfectly, when I got to this length, I got 2 perfect color repeats of the Progress Pride flag. And that was the reason I wanted to do it longer, is because just in case I'm wearing like longer sleeves with this, you can still see that it is intended to be a pride flag. And so I'm really glad that I got that length, and they just perfectly stopped. They're not identical in the stripe repeat. You can see that they're close enough, closer than I've ever gotten with any stripe yarn before, and maybe that is the style of dyeing she did with this. If I would have done the cast on, I started off doing the cast on for the second glove really tight because I wanted them to be perfect, but then when I saw how tight the cast on looked, it wasn't too tight to get it on, it just didn't look very good. And she starts off with this rolled stockinette piece down here, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna redo the cast on and make it look nice. And then, you know, you really can't tell unless you're really looking close to me that these stripes don't perfectly match up. Or at the top where you see a little bit more blue, and then this cast off is just barely blue. But for the most part, if you're a good 6 feet away from me, you really can't tell, and they really look pretty professional. Like I said, I like this pattern a lot. It's really great if you are just like, this was before I knit socks. This was how I got into knitting in the round, because I had DPNs and I was just like, I really want to learn how to knit in the round. You learn ribbing. She boho knits. They also do the sock head cowl and the sock head hat. And that's also, I did like all the free patterns that they offer, and it's all fingering weight yarn. And I had like, you know, a lot of sock yarn, as we tend to do. And she rates her patterns rookie, apprentice, virtuoso, genius, and she calls this an apprentice level, so one step up from rookie. But I feel like this could be a early knitting pattern for someone, especially if you're looking for a bit, you don't want to knit like a mile long scarf for your first knitting project. You learn how to knit in the round. The pattern tells you, hey, these are the DPNs, these are the number of stitches you should have on each DPN. She has charts in here for, you do like increases for the thumb, and this is free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. She has charts in here, so if you don't know how to do a chart, this is an easy way to get into chart reading, because all it is increasing and then keeping. That's another thing too. Keeping in pattern while you do increases is another skill set, and so you'll get a lot of skill set just in this little, 50-gram project. Especially like if you're like me, when you were first starting off knitting, you went out and bought yarn and you were like, I don't know if I have enough yarn to make anything. If you got 50 grams of fingering weight yarn, you can make these. And then the sizing is super forgiving because it's ribbing, it's fingerless gloves, so you don't even have to worry about them fitting the whole hand. Really good stuff. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this pattern. Yeah, I like a lot. Oh, that was the other thing. So like I said, this is one of the first patterns I made, and this one had make one lefts, make one rights in it. And so, funny story, I'm working on my Pouf cardigan, and for the raglan increases, it calls for make one lefts, make one rights. And I had to keep looking at the pattern, keep looking at tutorials. The pattern, I didn't care for how they worded it, and I know there's somebody out there that means really, really well, and they're going to give me like their trick to remember make one left, make one right. They're not helpful to me. Like I am, my brain, they're like, oh, leave the back door through the right and left the door open, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I feel like every one of those tips, you need to know your left from your right, and I actually really struggle with knowing my left from my right. And so, very long story short, I'm working on the Pouf, and I'm like, I think I finally memorized, and that's all I was like, I have to memorize this. I can't just think of tips and tricks. I have to like just straight up do it. And I was like, I think I have this memorized. So I was making my Pouf. Then I cast these on, and that involved me pulling out my pattern that I haven't looked at in 2 years, and it's got all my notes on it. And I actually wrote fairly detailed notes about how to do a make one left and make one right, because I was a beginner. And it's funny how, like, when you get a certain level of confidence, as I've gotten a certain level of confidence, sometimes my technique can suffer. And so, like, when I'm, really trying to learn something, I'm very meticulous, very exacting. And so I had very exacting notes in here. And I was just like, oh, I've been doing it backwards this whole time, and it took me going back to like my beginner pattern to figure out that I had been doing it backwards. And so when you see my LaPouf, all the make one lefts and make one rights are actually switched, which actually works out fine as long as you do them backwards. It's fine, but it's just funny. But now I know, from based on this whole ordeal, now I truly have it memorized. So that's that. That's the Pioneer Gloves by Boho Knits. The next thing I want to show y'all, I got a bunch of hand spun here. This is finished Coopworth. This is from a fleece I got from Shenandoah Fiber Fest. This is 3 skeins, spun 3-ply, long draw. Just as, actually I can't skein this up because I got threads hanging from me, but yeah, I'm gonna twist these up and hang these up. Finally got them. I had singles for the third one sitting on the bobbin forever, and then once I got those plied up, I washed them all together. And the way I finish my yarn, I just put them in hot water. When the hot water cools off, I just snap them, and that's that, and this is that. I'm thinking of doing a worsted weight shawl, and I'm also debating if I should do a worsted weight shawl and then try to dye it somehow, like after I knit the shawl, like maybe doing some sort of fade or something. I don't know. But I also think it would be really pretty to just have an all white hand spun sheepy shawl. Like, I don't know, like, I'm always of two minds when it comes to wool. Like, I love big obnoxious colors, but then there's something about just raw hand spun straight from the sheep yarn. And so that's done. Speaking of various states of finish, this was my when I did Tour de Fleece, I was just like, let me just break out a braid and just put a braid on my spinning wheel. And so this is, I just dropped the label somewhere. This is Fox colorway in Cheviot from Black Smoke Fibers. And this is short forward draw, and then I did a chain ply with it, and it still needs to be washed. So it's got a little bit of extra twist to it, but it's just like my default. I have one braid of this kind of spin where I just do short forward as thin as I can, get as much yardage as I can, then chain ply it together back on itself, so I don't have to worry about having any leftovers. And I think this is going to be a nice piece of color work and something. And Cheviot is my favorite sheep breed to spin, because there's something very textural about it that I really enjoy. Oh, here it is. I thought I had knocked it over. It's Black Smoke Fibers, Fox Run, 100% Cheviot. Another work in progress I have is today I got to the end of Mr. Rulud's adventure hat, and I told y'all what I was going to do is the pattern calls, this is the sorting hat by Daniel Yuhas, and the pattern calls to put either pipe cleaner or beading wire into the brim of the hat. So what I wanted to do was finish everything but the bind off with the wire, so I could wash the hat. Then I'm going to put the wire in after I wash it and do the bind off. And so this is that hat, and I'm kind of at a bit of a crossroad, and we'll see how this works out, because I still have to put the wire in it. And the thing that I did not account for in the pattern, it's supposed to mimic the sorting hat from a certain series of books. And so it calls for like garter stitch and like some different textural things. And for this project, this is an adventure hat for Mr. Rulud, and he wanted all stockinette. And the thing I didn't think about when I was following all the increases for the brim is that garter stitch has shorter, the stitches are shorter than stockinette gauge. And so I did all of the increases the pattern called for, and I felt like, I was like, this is getting kind of big. But I also had it scrunched up on needles, and also Mr. Rulud is relatively tall guy, and the character he's mimicking is like a 32-bit little chibi, so like it should be kind of oversized for him. But I am kind of nervous putting the beading wire in this, because either the beading wire is going to help add structure and allow the brim to, because he said this is the perfect size if the brim stays up. If it doesn't, then we got a problem. But I'm like, the extra weight of the beading wire, if I don't get like a thin gauge beading wire, either I need it to be thick enough that it can hold up the brim of the hat, but also not add too much weight and make the hat fall down. So I'm just going into this blind, and we'll see how this work out. This is like supposed to be my weekend whimsical project. It's mid-August. Halloween is, a good ways away, and so I have time, and I'm trying not to overthink it. But something to think about, and I'll let y'all know when I still need to wash and block this. My blocking mats have a Pouf on it right now, so I'll have to wait till my Pouf fully dries, wash this, block this. I did not buy the beading wire. I went shopping, got some other stuff I'm about to show you, but I forgot my beading wire. And we'll see. Maybe pipe cleaner would be better, but I'd have to find like the right color of pipe cleaner, or I feel like the pipe cleaner is going to kind of show through. But I don't know. Also, it calls for an I-cord bind off, and that does add some stiffness. But like I said, I'm concerned about the weight, because this is Encore chunky yarn, by the way. So this is not a lightweight hat. I guess I could also like weave in some beading wire into like where I did the increases. I don't know. Let me know, and I'll let y'all know. The last piece of this hat is this here where you do the ribbing, I guess, is to like make the hat kind of fit on the head, and you actually knit a strip on the bias and wrap it around here. And what we talked about was doing a contrasting color, and it's going to be this, which is some hand spun I got from my first fleece when I went to Maryland Sheep and Wool. I got a massive 9-pound fleece, and this is some of my first spinning. So you can see my coop worth versus my, what is this? This is, I forget what breed this is, but it's definitely lumpy bumpy. It's 2-ply. It's all over the place, but I think it's going to add some nice texture to the hat and kind of give it that witchy adventure, hobbit hole type of vibe to it. And so I think it's going to be really nice, but it's just nice to revisit that. And it's nice to find something to use my hand spun that's just not the best hand spun in the world. And I have a lot of this to get through. I'm also thinking about Christmas gifts I can make with this stuff. So I told y'all I went shopping, so I'm going to quickly show y'all some stuff I got this week. And actually, Mr. Rulud went shopping too, and so I'm going to show you some stuff he got too. Mr. Rulud went out of town this week, so I took some time off to be with the kids, and they're about to go back to school, so I thought we'd do like the one last summer hurrah thing, and we ended up in beautiful Charlottesville, Virginia, and we stopped by Magpie Knits. Not to be confused with, there's a Magpie in Maryland, but this is Magpie Knits, and this is yarn and needlepoint shop, and so they have quite a bit of floss, and they sell little, they have tea towels for sale, all that kind of stuff. And what I got there, I got this, I decided to treat myself. I got a kid going from daycare to kindergarten this year, and so if you know that come up, then if you know. So I decided to give myself a little treat, and this is some Ito Sensei. It's 6 skeins of Ito Sensei, and I just got it because I really like the colors together, and it's all Ito Sensei is lace weight, mohair, alpaca, and they had a shop sample, and the shop sample was the Plaid Please by Amy Miller. And I didn't even realize till I got home that this actually comes with the pattern. I just really liked the fiber, and I am a sucker for someone putting the colors together for me, and I thought this would just look cute in my yarn room. And it came with a little magpie. This is their mascot, and so I got this for myself, and now I have the pattern to make this. And the funny thing about this is I actually recently saw a vest pattern, and I was like this close to buying this vest pattern because it was like exactly what I was looking for, because I really want a really nice sweater vest. And the only thing that put me off is that it had this beautiful plaid on it, and I was reading the details on Ravelry, and they're like, oh, the plaid's made by using a crochet hook, and you just apply the plaid. And they said it was easy, but I'm just like, it just seemed just intimidating. I'm not a crocheter, so whenever I see crochet hook, I'm just like, oh no, what do I do? And so I was like, oh, maybe I won't get it. And so then the fact that I got this and it comes with a pattern, and then the cashier was, as she was ringing me up, was like, oh, this is so cool because you make the plaid, and the plaid's so easy. And I was like, oh, is this the plaid you do with the crochet hook? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh. And so hopefully this is the impetus I need, and I'll make this, and this will be my Charlottesville shawl, and it'll get me into more crochet type things. The other thing I got was the unique sock kit. If y'all aren't familiar with these are two 50-gram balls that are dyed exactly the same way, so you get exactly matching socks. And I've told y'all about the hunt for rainbow socks for Mr. Rulude. I have the Progress Pride socks left over, and so those will make like nice stripy socks. But the way these knit up, if y'all can see, it fades into a rainbow, and so this is just going to give a different flavor of rainbow sock. But I think he'll like this a lot, and it actually references a toe up sock pattern that you can download, and then that way when you start at the toe and you just go all the way up, you end up using every little bit of yarn that you can. So I think that's going to be really cool. And you know, who doesn't love a nice rainbow? And then of course, whenever you go shopping at the little yarn stores, they give you these little notions. And so now I have another tape measure, because you can never have too many tape measures, and this says all you knit is love, and it has their little magpie on it. And then I got a needle gauge measurer slash gauge swatch ruler, and this one's cool because it goes all the way down to 000, which I'm actually thinking about getting some 00, 000 needles, just because my socks are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it goes all the way up to size 19, which I don't have 00, don't have 000. I think I do have one pair of 19s, but most of these other sizes I don't have. So it's just funny that I have like the most deluxe version of a needle measurement. The other thing I wanted to do is there is a Scrappy, like a creative reuse store, like a craft thrift store in Charlottesville. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be in Charlottesville. I'm going to stop by there and I'm going to pick up beading wire. I got to the cashier. The cashier was just like, oh, I can't believe you're not getting that much. And she was just like, oh, it must be nice, you know, because she works there. And so she said she has all these different hobbies. And I was like, oh, the only thing I really do is knit. So I just wanted to look at the yarn. And then I got home, and then literally this morning I was just like, oh, I wanted to go there to get beading wire. And all I did was look at the yarn. But the way the store works is that you actually fill a bag up, and based on how big of a bag you choose, that's how much you pay. So they have like an $8 bag, $12 bag, $20 bag, and if it fits in the bag, that's how much you pay. But then they also have like some nicer stuff that's marked individually with just little green pieces of paper. And so they had like a big basket of like really like Lena, like the 10 silk stuff, like 100% silk yarn, 100% mohair yarn, really, really nice stuff. I couldn't really think of, I left a lot of it behind just because I was like, I don't even know what I would make. Now I'm like, oh, I should have got it and I could have done this with it. There was like a bunch of like white mohair, and I was like, what would I do with that much white mohair? And I was like, oh, I could have dyed it, but also I feel like it'd be a pain in the butt to dye mohair. I don't know. So it got left behind. But I did get two things. These were both Most of like the individual yarn was priced either at $4 or $6, and this is the Retrosario Modeme, which I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I never knew what it was. People would be like, "Oh, Retrosario." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And it's Portuguese yarn. It's 100% wool, non-superwash, woolen spun, and it's like, everything that you could possibly, Okotex, non-museling, like checks all the boxes. And I'm very much, and that's another reason I'm trying to be more discerning with my yarn purchases, trying to get away from variegated yarns. And so I was like, okay, I can't go wrong with just a solid red yarn. I can use this in like color work, or they said that you can, even though it doesn't have nylon in it, they do say that it's really good for socks actually. And a lot of people who don't like to use nylon or superwash do use this for socks. And so this is going to be really nice. Obviously you can't wash these in the washing machine. You have to hand wash them, but it does like feel like very durable and very like tightly spun. Yeah, so that's great. And I get to try a yarn that I've heard people talk about and I just had no idea. The other thing I got for $6, and this retails for about $15, is the Notice sock from Queen City Yarns. And it's funny, I went to Charlottesville, but this is a hand dyer out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is superwash merino, 75% and 25% nylon. So, traditional sock yarn, in the color mint condition. And it's just this really nice, subtle minty color. And so, like I said, you really can't go wrong, especially like when I'm doing like a Stephen West shawl or something like that. And I'm just like, I just need a skein of some solid color to tie some different colors together. And so this is what I got. As I said, last but certainly not least, Mr. Rulud went out of town. And the first thing I do, obviously, I went to Charlottesville. I looked up what was in Charlottesville. I was actually visiting a friend. It wasn't just to go buy yarn. Mr. Rulud told me where he was going to be. And so I'm like, Google, blankety blank city, yarn. And I was like, oh, you're going to be near Chattanooga Yarn Company. Because he went to Chattanooga Yarn Company. It was completely out of his way, but it was the closest yarn store to him. And this is what he got. And he actually took pictures of the store, so I'm gonna see if I can post those on my Instagram or whatever, so I could see the store and everything. And he got this free with purchase. It's a Barocco book of patterns, and it's really just super basic, and not basic in a bad way, child sweater, adult sweater, vest. And I just think this is going to be really useful. A lot of flat seamed garments, which I think really lends itself well to the aesthetic of just 100% wool, solid yarn. All of the patterns, they use Barocco Lanus, Barocco Ultra Wool, and Barocco Vintage. And so I think it's going to be really nice to maybe go and buy a proper sweater quantity of just a solid yarn and make just a solid sweater. They even have 100%, on the back they have the cabled vest. I'm like, oh, that might be a nice vest for me. They got a men's sweater in here, maybe for Mr. Rulud, but I always because I am so wild with the colors, it's nice to have just some basic patterns, and they're, for the most part, for a magazine from a major yarn company, it's relatively size inclusive. This pattern I'm looking at in here, it goes up to oh, that's a blanket. Blanket's gonna be a bit bigger. Oh, this isn't centimeters. That's maybe why it seems size inclusive. Maybe I'll read this closer and I'll let you know how size inclusive it really is. 90 divided by 4 is, okay, all right, maybe not as size inclusive as I was thinking, but yeah, I'll let y'all know. I'm gonna look through here a little bit more. And I didn't realize Barocco was, I guess everyone uses metric system except for us. How many books Simone Biles can jump over? I don't know how many centimeters she can, but I know she can jump 12 feet in the air. But the real star of the show is, of course, he got me a couple of skeins of yarn. This is a place in Tennessee, Stella Luna. They hand-dyed yarn, and this is a collaboration they did with the yarn store, and this is called Empress Bess in a BFL DK, 100% superwash blueface Leicester, 246 yards, 100 grams, and it's named after Miss Bessie Smith. They have like Heroes of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I didn't realize Miss Bessie Smith is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so that's your education for the day. And then this one is called just Familiar, and this is, I think this is just like one of like their other skeins of yarn, but you can't go wrong with this. This is actually a worsted weight, but this DK is super thick, and so I could see definitely using these together in like a color work hat or something like this. And these two colors are definitely my colors, like just deep, rich jewel tones. And then he got me a little Notions tin, and this is so cute because it's like a magnet inside, and it's just like black and white tapestry needle, and this is like all magnetic in here, and this is like perfect for each. It's like 10 white, 10 black, and this is like perfect for raglan increases. I like to do like 8 stitch markers for all of my increases on a sweater, and like all of them can match and be pretty and then be magnetic. And I usually use my my needle minder. I have a magnetic needle minder, and I just like keep my stitch markers there so I can put them on as I'm working on my project. So I'm a big fan of a little metal tin like this, and it's got a cute little sheep. And then this little guy is just like a little mushroom guy, and it's just got 2 little mushroom stitch markers in there, and this is like cute for like putting in my little sock bag, and then I can have little mushrooms marking my beginning of round on my little socks. And it's also purple, which is my favorite color. And so that was that. So thank you to Mr. Rulud for that. Thank y'all for watching me. Please like this, comment on this, share it with a friend, share it with an enemy, if that's how you feel about them. Subscribe. Once again, this has been Candy Bee Knittin'. You can also email me, candybknittin@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Rulud. You can see pictures of me blocking my Pouf cardigan. You can follow what I make with this yarn. Maybe I'll do some pictures inside that Barocco thing after I look up how to convert centimeters to inches. I think it's gonna be one of those like a 44 inches and extra large. We'll see. Until next time, peace.